Take a deep breath and let the world outside fade away. For the next 20 minutes, I want you to step into a space of absolute truth. Close your eyes for a moment and travel back to when you were 7 years old. While other children were arguing over toys or dreaming of superheroes, you were doing something far more dangerous. You were staring into the eyes of a parent who was falling apart. You were not playing in the dirt. You were scanning the room. You were measuring the silence in the hallway like a scientist measuring a storm. You were calculating the weight of a sigh. Without a single word being spoken, something ancient and primal clicked in your small mind. A silent contract was signed in the dark. That contract said, "If I do not hold everything together, no one will." This is the exact moment a child disappears. They do not leave physically, but psychologically, they vanish into a mask of maturity. You became the emotional thermostat of your household. You learned to read the room before you learned to trust your own heart. And the world, in its ignorance, praised you for it. They called you mature. They called you an old soul. They called you the strong one. But no one ever stopped to ask you what it felt like to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand. No one asked at what cost this maturity came. If you are listening to this, you are likely that child grown up. You are the high-functioning adult who handles every crisis, the friend who solves everyone's problems, the partner who overfunctions to the point of exhaustion. Yet, in the quiet moments, you feel a hollow ache that no amount of success can fill. You feel like a fraud. You feel a strange, burning guilt the moment you try to rest, because productivity is the only way you have ever felt worthy of taking up space. Today, we are going deep into the psychology of the child who grew up too fast. We will decode the neurological scars of parentification, the dark psychology of the good child trap, and the Stoic path to reclaiming the childhood that was stolen from you. Let us begin with the science of your silence. In developmental psychology, what you experienced is called parentification. It occurs when the natural order of caregiving is inverted. Instead of the parent providing emotional regulation for the child becomes the caregiver, the peacekeeper, the therapist, or the protector for the adult. This is not just a tough childhood. It is a fundamental rewiring of your biological hardware. When a child is consistently put in charge of emotional regulation, either their own or that of their parents, it creates a state of permanent hypervigilance. You are always scanning for danger. You walk on eggshells so softly that you forget you even have feet. You learned very early that love is not a gift. Love is a transaction. You learned that if you provided peace, maybe they would give you safety. You learned that your needs were dangerous and their needs were urgent. This environment forces your brain to develop what neuroscientists call a high-performance radar system. Most human brains are designed to ignore 90% of what they see to save energy. They treat background noise as irrelevant, but your brain, the brain of the parentified child, treats everything as relevant. You process the texture of the chair, the hum of the refrigerator, and most importantly, the micro-expressions on a parent's face all at once. Science calls this low latent inhibition. It is like recording the world in 8K resolution while everyone else is watching in standard definition. This is why you get overwhelmed so easily as an adult. It is not that you are weak. It is that your hardware lacks a filter. You are an emotional sponge in a world full of spills. You notice the beauty, the patterns, and the solutions that everyone else misses. But you also notice every flicker of annoyance and every shift in the mood of the person sitting next to you. Think about the consequences of carrying this radar. Because you process everything so deeply, you reach your limit faster than others. When you suddenly shut down or need to hide in a dark room, that is not you being dramatic. That is your internal system overheating. Your system has reached its capacity because it has been running a complex simulation of everyone else's emotions for decades. You have been carrying the weight of entire lives before you were even old enough to drive. This is the invisible grief of those who grew up too fast. The effects do not vanish with age. They follow you into your relationships, your career, and your very sense of self-worth. If you do not understand what happened back then, you will spend your adult life repeating the survival patterns that once saved you but are now slowly killing you. There is a beautiful metaphor in research for this condition. It is the distinction between the orchid and the dandelion. Most people are like dandelions. They are resilient. They can grow anywhere, in a crack in the sidewalk or a beautiful garden. They are fine regardless of the environment. But you, the child who had to grow up too fast, you are an orchid. If you are placed in a harsh, noisy, or toxic environment, you will wither. You will struggle more than the dandelions ever will. And for years, you have probably blamed yourself for not being a dandelion. You have told yourself to toughen up. You have apologized for your sensitivity. But the research on vantage sensitivity shows us something amazing. When an orchid is placed in the right environment, with the right light and the right care, it does not just survive. It blooms with a complexity and beauty that the dandelion can never achieve. You do not need to toughen up to survive the sidewalk. You need to move yourself to the greenhouse. But why did you take on this role in the first place? Why would a child willingly sacrifice their soul for an adult? Because children will do anything for attachment, even abandon themselves. In the absence of safety, the child sacrifices authenticity for belonging. This choice is never conscious. It is biological. It is a survival instinct. You became the good child, the quiet achiever, the one who never asked for anything. You wore that identity so convincingly that even you forgot it was a mask. But deep down, something hurts. Something aches because the inner child you buried did not die. They are still in there, screaming silently, asking why no one was there to protect them. We must also talk about a very specific and painful side effect of this survival mode, the memory gap. Have you ever noticed that you cannot remember your childhood in detail? While your friends can recount stories from when they were 8 or 10 years old, your past feels like a series of blurry, black and white photos. This is not a defect of your brain. It is a protective mechanism. When the nervous system is consistently flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, it stops prioritizing long-term memory encoding. Your brain decided that the reality of your childhood was too heavy to carry, so it filed those memories away in a locked room to keep you functioning. You do not have a bad memory. You have a brain that tried to protect you from the truth of your own neglect. You were too busy surviving to bother with remembering. As you grew older, these patterns became your baseline. Dysfunction was normalized so early that your nervous system now accepts chaos as the only truth. Stillness feels wrong to you. Peace feels suspicious. Love feels like a debt that you will eventually have to repay with interest. This is the dark psychology of the responsible child. You are addicted to being useful because you do not know who you are when you are not fixing something. You might even unconsciously seek out partners who are broken, not because you are a saint, but because a broken person feels like home. When there is no one to fix, your radar system has nothing to do, and that silence feels like death. The first step to healing is not fixing. The first step is witnessing. You must stop gaslighting yourself. You must stop saying it wasn't that bad or that others had it worse. Other people's pain does not invalidate your own. Fine is just a mask you wear to keep the world comfortable. You must validate the grief of the child who was never allowed to be a child. You must acknowledge that being mature for your age was not a compliment. It was a tragedy. It was the sound of a childhood being stolen. This process of witnessing is the beginning of shadow work. It means turning toward the abandoned parts of yourself and saying, I see you now, I hear you, and I am not leaving you again. This is brutal because it asks you to feel the grief you never had time to feel when you were 7 or 10. It asks you to sit with the rage of having to protect people who should have protected you. But this grief is proof that the ice is finally melting. What was once frozen in your soul is finally starting to move. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. How does this show up in your adult life today? It shows up in your hyper-independence. You refuse help because you were taught that asking for help makes you a burden. You push people away because you are terrified that if they see the real, soft version of you, they will leave. You are praised for your strength, but that strength is actually a prison. You might find yourself in relationships where you overfunction, always managing, always over-explaining, and always wondering why you feel so resentful. You struggle with boundaries because saying no still feels like a betrayal. These are not your personality traits. These are coping strategies. And the good news is that they can be unlearned. One of the most powerful things you can do is to ask your inner child a single question. What did I need back then that I never got? You might hear answers that break your heart. I needed someone to tell me it wasn't my fault. I needed someone to ask me how I was doing. I needed to play and laugh and be loud without fear of the consequences. Slowly, very slowly, you must begin to give these things to yourself, not to fix your past, but to stop your past from living in your present. This is how you stop seeking parents in your partners. This is how you stop mistaking anxiety for intuition. Let us look at this through the lens of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote about the inner citadel. He believed that no matter what chaos happens in the outside world, your inner world is your own. For the child who grew up too fast, your inner citadel has been occupied by the needs of others for far too long. You have been a guest in your own mind. Stoicism teaches us the dichotomy of control. You must realize that you were never responsible for your parents' happiness, and you are not responsible for the emotions of every adult in your life now. Their anger is not your fault. Their disappointment is not your burden. Your only responsibility is to your own character and your own peace. In a world that values being tough and being fast, your sensitivity is actually your greatest strength. It is a sophisticated early warning system that the world desperately needs. You are the one who notices the weather changing before the storm hits. You are the one who senses the truth when everyone else is lying. Your radar is not a defect. It is a high-performance instrument. But you must protect it. You must build your boundaries. You must honor your need for silence and for beauty. Do not mistake being out of place for being without value. You were born an orchid in a world that tries to turn everyone into a dandelion. The journey of healing is not a straight line. There will be days when you feel like that 7-year-old child again, staring into the eyes of a world that is falling apart. On those days, I want you to take a deep breath and remember, you are the adult now. You are the protector now. But you are not protecting them. You are protecting you. You are going back to hold that child's hand. You are saying the words that no one ever said. You didn't deserve that. You were just a child. You get to rest now. I am here, and I am not leaving. This is the beginning of your new life. A life where your worth is not a transaction. A life where you do not have to fix everyone to be seen. A life where you can finally grow up the right way. Not through pressure, not through fear, but through truth. You never had a childhood, but you still have a future. And this time, you are the one who gets to write it. You are no longer the victim of your history. You are the architect of your own peace. As we close this deep dive, I want you to think about the people in your life who always seem to be the strong ones. Maybe it is you, or maybe it is someone you love. Consider sharing this reflection with them, not because they need fixing, but because they deserve to be seen. They deserve to know that their strength was a survival tactic, and that they are allowed to put the weight down. If you found this exploration of the human mind valuable, please join us here at Behavioral Psychology Lab. We are dedicated to decoding the hidden patterns of our behavior so that we can all live with more intention and more grace. There are so many more layers to uncover, from the dark psychology of manipulation to the ancient wisdom of the Stoics. Your journey of self-discovery is the most important mission you will ever undertake. Take one last deep breath. Feel the weight of your body against the chair. Notice the silence around you. This silence is not empty. It is full of potential. It is the greenhouse where the orchid finally begins to bloom. You are safe, you are seen, and for the first time in a very long time, you are allowed to just be. Thank you for watching, And as always, stay curious. We will see you in the next deep dive into the mysteries of the mind.